Welcome to the next installment of my video lecture series with regards to microtheory. And in this particular video lecture, I'm going to be talking about perfect competition, in particular, how you can derive the demand faced by an individual firm in a perfectly competitive marketplace from the world market for that particular product. Additionally, I'm also going to show you what marginal revenue looks like in a perfectly competitive marketplace. So this is important because the demand curve and marginal revenue curves look completely different in perfect competition versus monopoly. And this is an area where students oftentimes get confused. So I thought I would take a little bit of time to derive this out for perfect competition so you have a good understanding of this and so you don't get confused when I go over monopoly. So here we have our grid, and we're going to take a look at the world market and compare that to the demand that a firm faces. So we're going to set this up on the same graph. We're going to use the left-hand side here for the world marketplace. I've denoted QW here for the quantity in the world. To be honest with you, that's not really going to be important. We're mostly concerned with what the price is going to be. But I just wanted to keep this this quantity here and the quantity for the firm and label it appropriately. So in any market, it's going to be supply and demand forces that set equilibrium price and quantity. So in the world market, we're going to have a downward sloping demand curve. We're going to have an upward sloping supply curve. And where they intersect is going to give us the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity. As I said previously, all we're really concerned with is what's the equilibrium price. Now, in a perfectly competitive marketplace, there are many buyers and sellers. Where they're all selling the same product. They're selling a homogeneous product. There's no differentiation between those products. And also realize that because of this, individual firms are price takers. That is, the world market sets the price, and that is the price that you have to accept. So the world market sets the price, and that becomes the price that the individual firm faces. So what we end up with is a perfectly elastic demand curve. So realize that in perfect competition, the world market here sets the price, and that is accepted by all firms, so the price is equal to demand. In perfect competition also, marginal revenue is equal to the price. And this is a distinct characteristic of perfect competition. It is not going to hold in monopoly. So I want you to realize this for perfect competition, but I also am going to give you a little bit of an explanation as to why price and marginal revenue are equivalent to one another in perfect competition. So let's bring this up. I have this table filled in here, but be more concerned with what's going on the right-hand side. And what I'm going to do is calculate total revenue at quantities of 1. So we have a quantity of 1. That's the price. So total revenue when the quantity is equal to 1 is going to be equal to P times Q, P times 1. So total revenue is equal to P. We can do the same thing for a quantity of 2. 2 at a quantity of 2, total revenue is equal to 2P, because as you remember, total revenue is P times Q, so it's P times Q, which is equal to 2, so it's 2P. And we do the same thing for a quantity of 3, total revenue is equal to 3P. So let's just review quickly what marginal revenue actually is. Marginal revenue is the change in total revenue divided by the change in quantity. So if I do that when I move from a quantity of 1 to a quantity of 2, I get a change of total revenue. It's 2P minus P, and the change in quantity is 2 minus 1. So when I move from a quantity of 1 to 2, my revenue increased to 2P from P, so we have 2P minus 1P, or just P, and our quantity increase, we went from 1 to 2, so the change and total revenue is equal to P, and the change in Q is equal to 1. So marginal revenue is equal to P when I go from an output of 1 to 2. Let's do the same thing when we move from an output of 2 to 3. So we have the same formula for marginal revenue. It's the change in total revenue divided by the change in Q. So now we're moving from an output of 2 to 3. So the total revenue is 3. The change in total revenue is 3p minus 2p. And then the change in quantity is 3 minus 2. If we solve that out, we end up with p over 1 again. And that tells us that marginal revenue is equal to price. All right, we could do the same thing from 0 to 1. At 0, quantity of 0, total revenue is equal to 0, right? P times Q. A P times 0 is going to give us 0. And what does our total revenue increase? It goes from 0 to P when we increase output to 1. So realize that is very important to realize, the two different components here. How we get the demand curve that is faced by an individual firm, the market sets that. That means the individual firm faces a perfectly elastic demand curve. So P is equal to demand, but also realize that in perfect competition, P is equal to demand. It is also equal to marginal revenue. So in a perfectly competitive marketplace, price and marginal revenue are equivalent to one another. This is important because when we contrast this to monopoly, this will not be the case. Demand and marginal revenue will be separate entities from one another.